Hey, good morning. This is Steve Ohnsman from Calvary United Church of Christ. I'm doing my Wednesday Word here in my beautiful sanctuary in Reading, PA. Check it out. Isn't that gorgeous? One of three of that size ever made. This is one of two left. We've had prayer time here during the last couple of days around the election, trying to bring people together. So that's why I'm up here. So today's word comes from Paulette Moore. And the question is, what is the biblical and historical significance of the Book of Lamentations? Now, again, this is less than 7 minutes, the hope is, so I won't get to it. I'm not an Old Testament scholar. I'm just a pastor who reads the scripture and studies it seriously. So let me just give you some background and talk about why it matters a little bit. The Book of Lamentations is believed to have been written sometime between 610 and 585, the end of a very long time of suffering and tribulation, really in the middle of it, for Israel. It's a conglomeration of complaints and woe, a book asking, like Job and many of the Psalms, where the heck is God during all of this bad stuff? Where is God when bad things happen? I addressed this question, the word is theodicy, a couple of months ago. Why do bad things happen to good people? And of course, the logical question of this is, if God is all good and all powerful, then bad things wouldn't happen. But bad things, evil, pain, and suffering do happen. So God is either all good or all powerful. That's the challenge of theodicy. God can't stop bad things from happening, or God creates them or doesn't even care. So how does evil come about? Well, it's not because God made it. It's because everything that God has made is flawed, right? It's imperfect. We know that from Scripture. So the fact that the serpent can come in and speak the truth, but convince Adam and Eve to disobey God, is just an aspect of the imperfect creation. And all of creation is imperfect. A number of sources I looked at into believe that, like the Psalms, Lamentations may have had many authors. And this is true about most scripture. Most of our writing has been changed over time, edited, improved, corrected, every single one. In fact, there's a growing corpus of articles and books focusing on God, the Bible, as forgery. Not in the forgery sense that we know, but in the sense that the books are named for people who didn't necessarily write them. And in fact, Gospel of Luke starts out that way, that he's tried to compile a true account after many, many people have tried to tell it. So it was believed for a long time that Lamentations was written by the same person who wrote Jeremiah, based on some similarities of structure and syntax. Recent scholarship, however, has changed all of this and believes it was probably written by one person, and that person is just called the poet. So like most of Scripture, we have no idea who wrote Lamentations. So back to Lamentations. It's really a book of doom and despair. It's meaningful because we have all had these feelings of loss and struggle. There's nothing new about the way we feel. All of us go through it, usually more than once. And it may be, according to Professor F.W. Dobbs Alsop, I don't know if he's still at Princeton, but he used to teach there. It's the most remarkable and compelling testament of the human spirit in the Hebrew Scriptures. That's what his understanding of it is. It speaks to the horror that can sometimes take over our lives. It pushes us to continue on in spite of it. So while it's really kind of disturbing and sad, it's also giving us the opportunity to be hopeful. Lamentations can be also located largely in what's called the city lament genre, fairly common in those centuries, CE or BC, as we used to call it. And it's somewhat similar to some of the laments in the book of Revelation. Woe to you, the city, as well as some of the Gospels, especially when Jesus approaches Jerusalem and says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who's killed the prophets. What's missing, however, is there's not a whole lot of hope of return. The idea of the prophetic message of Amos and Micah and those guys is really about a remnant will rise up and things will be okay. The remnant will be saved to start all over again. My last thought about Lamentations is a warning. Kind of like the skulls on the posts of castle walls. You know, if you've watched any of those shows like Game of Thrones, if you aren't careful, it seems to be saying, you will suffer just like the poor souls who have been murdered or punished in some way. If you don't do the right thing, God will abandon you and you will have no future. And it's really focusing on leadership, political and religious leadership, and the people. If you abandon God, God will abandon you. That's just how it works. God will not keep you connected. And there's a slight plea at the end for restoration, but it's barely noticeable. And it ends like this. Restore us to yourself, O Lord, that we may be restored. Renew our days as of old, unless you have utterly rejected us and are angry with us beyond measure. So, that's somewhat about the biblical and historical significance of the Book of Lamentations. Thank you, Paulette, for your question. That's all I have today. I will be back next week for another installment. Please like and share this, or at least share it. Tune in next Wednesday. Be safe, wear your masks, wash your hands, and we'll see you soon.